Welcome, everybody. Everybody is here for our next panel, the diversity and inclusion in games industry, what needs to happen. Really looking forward to introducing our group here today. So when I say your name, please join us. Chelsea Blasco, co-CEO of Iron Galaxy Studios. Welcome, Chelsea.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yep. Nika Nour, Executive Director, IGDA Foundation. Nika, good to have you here today.
Thanks.
Francisca Phillips, Head of Global Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging at Jam City. Welcome, Francisca.
Thank you.
Susanna Pollack, President of Games for Change. Hey, Susanna. Great to have you here. And Angela Roseborough, Chief Diversity Officer, Riot Games. Angela, welcome to the show.
Oh, happy to be here.
And of course, our moderator with the most, Gordon Bellamy, CEO of the Gay Gaming Professionals, a visiting scholar at USC Games and USC Esports. Welcome, Gordon.
Thank you, Ned. It's a privilege to be here and just a privilege to be with this outstanding panel of leaders from across our craft. So let's get started. Just incredible histories and futures with all of you. And something I'd love to talk about as we talk about diversity and inclusion in games is purpose, right? Like all of you work with great purpose and intention from different points of view inside our craft. I think I'll start a place I feel very comfortable with Susanna and Nika, right? Where you're doing work which is very much in the fabric, the fabric and texture of our craft. And maybe you could talk to people a little bit about the purpose which is driving you in your work. And I'll just start with you, Susanna, and I'll go right to you, Nika.
Sure. Thank you, Gordon, and thank you and everyone at Digital Media Wire for hosting this session. So a little bit about the organization really, I think, it just focuses on the purpose of positive, building a positive community around games. So Games for Change is a not-for-profit, and our purpose, our mission is to empower game creators as well as social innovators to use games as drivers for social good, right? So a lot of our focus is around the games themselves. Can games be used to bring people together, to teach history, math, help people with rehabilitation, all the different applications that games can have. But part of our work is also encouraging a gaming community from the industry perspective, as well as the consumer perspective, but for purposes of this conversation, the industry, to make sure that we also are moving forward as an industry with a social purpose, right? With a social good purpose. And for us, that means about addressing equality, diversity, inclusivity, accessibility, and how can we make our industry strong, diverse, whole, and and working together in a positive, way to that will hopefully have an effect on the games we make and the people we serve, and all of that I think really does stem from inside the industry.
Same thing to you, Nika, obviously serving our entire development universe, right? And being the thoughtful action of our development universe. What is your purpose? What is motivating you?
Well, right now, Gordon, my purpose is to get our team to sleep as much as possible. Okay. So our purpose is sleep. Over at the IGDA Foundation, we are the International Game Developers Association Foundation. And since the whole COVID and shutdown of conferences, we normally fly people from around the world, underrepresented communities, to actually come and get scholarships, go to conferences like GDC and E3 to get a shot at having a career, because we all know how important networking and opportunities are. And unless, awesome companies like Jam City, Iron Galaxy, and Riot are going to give them a shot, it's not really existent. So we've moved to a virtual format. And since we're international, we basically never sleep. And thanks to people who supported us last year, we were able to place and support 50 to 70 people that were looking for opportunities, whether it's through retention or getting their first career. And then this year, and I don't even want to like cry about it because I'm so excited.
Let it
We
go.
were able to re-grant over $250,000
Wow.
in prototype funding to people who would have never gotten funding or that seed funding to create whatever web-based games they do want to make. And that's huge thanks to Grant for the Web. And we're having people make games and explore alternative monetizations in parts of the world where currencies really, you know, it doesn't just operate the way we do in the UK and the US. So through those programmings, we're also looking at bringing on 75 new people through our online virtual exchange program. So again, Gordon, my purpose is to make sure that my team is sleeping and that the people that we bring into these scholarship opportunities aren't just grabbing a check and leaving. We're helping them every step of the way. We want them to stay in games. We want to increase representation. And it's not just through bullshit, it's through direct, tangible action.
That is awesome. Well, that brings me right to Chelsea, because Chelsea, you are the narrative of excellence and retention in our craft. So maybe share well, it's true, real talk. Maybe share people where you started and where you are, because this is a North Star.
Yeah, so I started in games. It was not my first career. I'd already done a few things, but I started as an assistant to GM at EA Chicago. So I came on, I didn't know anything about games. I had no idea people were making games in Chicago until I started the job, really. And I just worked my way up, taking more and more responsibility. I became a senior producer. I've been a game director. Then I started just noticing that there were lots of pieces of the business that other people maybe didn't find as fun or want to do. So I started taking those on and those responsibilities and culture. And now I'm co-CEO. So
we're going to return to that, because you just did a little teleport. You're like, and then this happened, but we're going to dig a little deeper. I want to though include Francisca and Angela, because you represent sort of like the Star Trek Next Generation. Okay, because no, you are where our industry and craft has grown to a point where we're investing in excellence around diversity, inclusion, belonging, right? Where it's in the batter, not just the frosting. And so maybe talk a little bit about your purposes. I'll go Angela, then Francisca, about your purposes in your work and the roles that you've come into.
Well, let me say first, I am super excited to be here and talk about all of the diversity and inclusion that's happening in our industry, which is kind of my purpose. I'm not a native gamer, so I actually came out of finance and real estate and came over to Riot. And really it was two opportunities that I saw. One, I am the first chief diversity officer at Riot Games, and I sit on the executive team. So I did want for women, particularly women of color, to be able to look and see a person that looks like them that sits there. Because I think to what Nika's talking about, this is all about equity, access, and opportunity. To come to a gaming organization where we knew we had some work to do around how do we create not only inclusion for our rioters, but also for the industry. So so when I think about my purpose, I think about my two daughters, and I think about them being in a world where they are only measured by their abilities and not by what they look like. And so for me, I am super passionate about creating access to what Nika's talking about. There are so many people who play games but don't know it as a life career, and it can be there, but we don't have that yet. So that's one. How do you create opportunities where there are none? Because it's a really insular industry. And so making sure we're widening the net and we're really creating opportunities for that next generation. And then equity. I mean, I am super stoked by making sure we all start from different places, and I come from the south side of Chicago, so I really understand, like, I may not have had the same opportunities as someone. So Chelsea, we'll talk later, but the same opportunities as others. But how do we, and it's not because we don't have the intelligence or the capability, we just don't have the opportunity and the equity. And so part of this work is really making sure that whether you're a writer or you play the game, that we have inclusive practices and we're giving you that access to that opportunity. And I'm super passionate about that.
Same question, Francisca.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to say welcome to all the ladies and gents and non-binary friends in the audience. I'm really excited to be here today. And my passion and purpose really in life is, I come from Chile, from South America. I lived there for 25 years. It's a very different culture. So when I moved to the States, that for me already became sort of my passion, is to make sure that everybody feels included, that you can, it's kind of cheesy to say, but it is, if you can see it, you can be it. right? And make sure that people know that there's a space always for you wherever you are. And for me, basically, I just joined Jam City back in December. So professionally, that's my new journey with the gaming industry, although I've been playing games for forever. I'm not going to date myself, but it's like Tetris and stuff like that, way back when. But the passion is making sure that everybody feels that curiosity to approach every single conversation as an opportunity to be able to learn from somebody else. Everybody has different cultures, different backgrounds, different ways of thinking and problem solving. And I believe that everybody should have that curiosity to make sure that you learn from the other person, learn from the situation, and then gain something from that conversation or that interaction.
Wow. So just feeding off what you're saying, and even my own experiences now working university, there's the equity of access, right? But then there's this equity of retention. Like once you are there, and I know I experienced it with first generation students. I believe Nika was talking about like a first generation of people having access, to opportunities. So maybe let's focus on the first one first for a second, and we'll talk about the second one separately, right? Maybe talk about some of the programs that you're putting in place to create that equity of access, that equity of discovery and, I guess, identity, that this might be a place for me in the games ecosystem. And I'll stay with you right here. We get these major employers, right? And then we'll talk about the programs, and then we'll talk about an individual studio. Chelsea, we're gonna go back and be like, now that you know, what are you doing differently? But let's start with you, Francisca and Angela. Talk about like what sort of things are you doing for people to know that games could be a place for different types of people, in a place that employs thousands of folks. And I'll go Francisca first, maybe this time. We'll go back.
Okay. No problem. So we're spotlighting all of our talent. So we have lots of different talent, and we're using those months of awareness to be able to spotlight the talents that we have. Again, if you see somebody that is in a role that you potentially want to be in, if you somebody that looks like you or thinks like you're going to be able to know that you have that space. Also, I think that within the company, it's important that we have a baseline. So doing a self-ID campaign right now within our employee engagement survey, it's really important for us to know how our demographics are, so that also we're going to go ahead and have projects or programs that are going to be targeted to our population. A lot of times we make decisions in a vacuum as, the people team or maybe at leadership level, and we don't think really what it's needed out there because we don't know who we have. And sometimes we'll be a lot more surprised of what the things that we have, because we sort of focus always on things that the visible qualities of a person, gender, and gender and ethnic background sometimes, but there's so many other things like diversity of thought that sometimes we don't even think about that. And we are a lot more diverse than we think. So I think that that's another important thing, to set up a baseline and create psychological safety. That's for us is really key, because that's when employees are going to feel that they belong, that they can be their best self at work, bring their best self and thrive, and be able to voice their opinion and feel, kind of like I have a voice and I'm actually being heard. You can have a voice and sometimes not be heard. So we want to make sure that both things come into play.
So that feels like a census, basically, right? So like a baseline, something that you can count, so then you can measure growth, right? You can measure if things decrease. You should measure, because that census determines what even matters, like what you're even going to assess going forward.
Everybody counts.
That is fantastic. Angela, same question.
Okay, so when I started Riot 2 years, 3 months, and 14 days ago, but I am really not counting my time there for sure. It was really important to kind of listen. So I spent like the first 90 days before you can kind of create a strategy around what you're going to do. You had to listen to rioters and leaders and managers about kind of what is it that success would look like. And so that's how we created our strategy. I started at the top because I think diversity begets diversity. And so having a slate diversity initiative where we said for every senior role that we wanted it for a person who would be on the interview slate to be a woman or person of color. So 2 years later, I sit in the room where there was 3 of us, and now our head of entertainment is a woman. And we now have our head of Valorant, which is our number 2 game, and our head of League, which is our number 1 game. And so our head of communications. And so you now start to see how they, within their organizations, are driving inclusion. So we have just a different mindset at that executive team level where we're having discussions that are somewhat uncomfortable, but still quite necessary for us to continue. So that's one. I think the second is leveraging our ERGs in a way to give us insights. And so we have, 4 ERGs, and they are like my board of directors. We look at our surveys, as Francisca said, and we break it down between like every demographic, because I'm looking for engagement opportunities and I'm looking for gaps. And then leveraging our ERGs to say, what is it that we need to do differently? What is it that, if we're not as inclusive, what do you need to see? And putting those actions into place. And then this year, every leader has a scorecard. So it's not just enough, diversity is about all of us. So it's not like Francisca and I can kind of steer the conversation, but the accountability lies with the people who are in the day-to-day. And so every leader has a set of a scorecard that we're measuring that's part of the CEO review at the end of the year. So one is on qualitative, one which is the survey, quantitative, and then there's a set of actions that we believe every leader needs to do to be able to drive inclusion. And so when you come to, when you talk to leaders, I have a lot of leaders who are supportive of diversity, but I don't know if they're necessarily committed. So the scorecards ensures commitment. So support is, hey, I think we should do this. And oh yeah, go ahead and do that. Commitment is, here's what you should do, and this is how you should look at it. And so having those 3 things in place, I think we also are looking at how we're bringing talent in. So we've partnered with Johnson C. Smith and our esports organization to bring in talent that didn't even have access or knew that this was a pursuit for them. We're also focusing on FAMU and working with them just to make sure on our intern, which is kind of what I say is the ticket of entry when you're bringing in diverse perspectives, and making sure that they are part of our intern program. And so even to see the diversity of that has been, really great. So over the past 2 years, I'm really, we still have a lot of work to do, but we have increased representation of women and people of color, even if it's like 3 percentage points. What I say to folks is, it is hard to move 3 points forward. It is so easy to move 5 points backwards. So making sure, I think, Chelsea, you talked about this retention and identifying that talent to make sure that they are not being excluded or overlooked. So the other thing I point out is after every compensation review, after every performance review, we do a D&I review to make sure that there's not edge cases, that our rates are similar. So men to women, URM to non-URMs, making sure that we have equity across our processes, which I think is super important as well.
Wow, that's great to hear. That moving from allies to stakeholders.
Yeah.
Right, is why I really sort of took that. Also, by the way, let's record it again. The head of League of Legends is a woman. The head of Valorant is a woman. Go on, game history. Right. No, I mean, this is not common. These games are fairly popular.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I think it would inspire a whole generation of people to know that they could be any part of the ecosystem, on these games that they aspire to play. I want to move it to Susanna and Nika. You touch on maybe a different part of the world in some parts. Some people who may end up in the Jam City, right, ecosystem, but so many different forms of expression and creation that you touch on, right, as our games evolve. Maybe talk about how you're providing access. I know, Nika, you were starting to talk about it, but I want to hear some more about the windows that you're opening, the steps that you're putting in place, so that people can know that they are able to craft a place as they are in this game space versus code switching to be in this space. And I'll start with you, Susanna.
Okay. Well, so we run programs that we hope will inspire and open up kids' minds that this actually could be a career path for them at a very young age. So we run programs for middle and high school students. Where we, where I guess our tagline is, we want to turn these consumers into creators, right? Let them realize that they actually can have, develop a career and use this passion that they have for games and have that fuel their education and their life trajectory. So we start with kids. We focus on underserved communities. We offer a program, it's called the Game to Change Student Challenge. We've been running it for 6 years. And we're focused on Title I schools. So our priority is to reach schools that kids don't usually have access to a program like this that is additive, right? Where we start with professional development. We actually start with the educators, to let educators know about how they can use games to engage their students. Again, meet them where they are, meet them on this area of this passion point, and use that as a way to bring in opportunities to learn really important 21st century skills as well as computer science skills, because this of course is a pathway to great STEM opportunities, right? Like get excited about game design, learn early block coding, that might move into a different direction, but there's also really important 21st century skills that game design, the design aspect of game making, right? Like critical thinking and problem solving, collaboration. So we really just want to get all of these like juices flowing with young people and getting them excited about making something, and making something is in teams, a real collaborative effort. And as part of that program, we also bring mentors in. And this is, I think, a really, really important part of the program, is letting kids have exposure to people who work in the industry that look like them. Right? They need to see that. People in the industry need to see that from a senior position, right? But kids really need to see that, to say, hey, this is for me. I can do this. So we try to engage ecosystems within the schools that we work in. And we're in LA, by the way, in New York, where it's easier, but we're also working in Atlanta and Detroit, where it might, be a bit more difficult to find, an active game design community. Atlanta, there is one. Detroit, a little less so. So we also engage with universities. So let mentors be college students who are pursuing careers in game design or computer science, and let them inspire the kids. That near peer aspect is really important at this age group. So that's where we just want to open up their minds and go, yes, actually, this could be something for me. And then encourage them as they continue through their, the secondary school education. And hopefully by the time they're looking at what they're going to do after high school, there are internships, there's community colleges or four-year programs where they can pursue that path, and we can be a feeder into that, and hopefully into a program that like Nika runs. I mean, that to me is the ideal, like full ecosystem. And maybe, ladies, we can talk about all of this after this call, but like, let's have that full continuum, right? Like when they go to school or in an internship, let's follow these kids in their journey and support them all along their way.
There it is, facts. We are not done at 1:45. I mean, we're done in this room, but our work is not done at 1:45, people on this panel. We'll continue, but I want to keep it moving. Nika, there's the handout, same question. What are you talking some more about the work?
Yeah, I mean, look, like our programming energy for 2021, I'm somewhere between a hybrid of a big auntie / truck driver energy when it comes to running our programs. And here's why. We're in a pandemic right now. It's COVID. I remember graduating in the 2008 economy. It was terrible. I've got this massive soft spot right now for anybody, especially minorities, trying to find their way in the world, let alone the games industry. And let's be honest, there hasn't been a great mailroom to boardroom pipeline in games. And there definitely isn't a clear kind of cut path for folks, especially in underrepresented groups. And it's not just about let's hire underrepresented groups to fill a quota or check a box. Let's set them up for success. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I think Chelsea's story is massively unique. I don't meet a lot of Chelsea's. I just don't. And so we really focus on a few programs. We identify, what do people need? We found out in the pandemic, people need prototype funding. If you want to give entrepreneurs a chance, they need something so that they can actually go pitch a product. Done. Then we have the career, increasing diversity and inclusivity in the workforce. And it's not just right, I love Susanna's demo because that's not the audience we hit. We can't boil the ocean. We absolutely can't. So we focus on college students. Right, that's my soft spot right now, and I'm struggling to adapt to Gen Z. Right, this is a workforce that believes that being really famous on TikTok is what comes first, then a job. So that's where the big auntie comes in. Get an internship, get an apprenticeship, get a degree. While you can do these things while you're young and creative and have no money, now's the time to dream. Then you have people who had no clue that games were even an option, right? If you're 30 and you want to go back in, I mean, I grew up in a household where video games were banned. Like literally my Middle Eastern Muslim household, if I didn't become a doctor, a lawyer, I mean, I faced every day. I love Mama Nour, happy Mother's Day, but I faced every week, what the hell you are doing? Put away your games and go to medical school, right? Like that was every day I was told that this isn't an opportunity. And I'm so glad I proved them wrong. But how many people built the resiliency to be like, I'm going to do what I absolutely love. I'm going to make it work. And so that's the heart of our programming, is finding pathways and not just like popping them in there. It's really carrying them all the way through. And we do that, thank God, due to the support of corporate partners. Yes, we represent indies. Yes, we represent entrepreneurship, but it is a big ecosystem. And where are the successful people at? Where are the jobs at? It's at places like partners such as Iron Galaxy, Riot Games, Francisca, the work that Susanna's doing. And it's a lot of effort. It takes a village. Just for last year's online program to get 55 people through, we had to bring in individual mentors, 100+ speakers. I mean, it took a whole ecosystem of 400 people, partners, collaborative efforts, mentors, etc., to find 55 people jobs, and not a lot of sleep. It's work. That's all it is. It's just hours and work and labor and providing those opportunities. It's not rocket science.
That is awesome.
Can I just add, like, I think
Sure.
what Susanna and Nika are saying are so important, because we're playing games. We just don't see it as an opportunity to have a job. And I think that's for us, the connection. Like, so like 50% of women play games, 83% of African Americans. We don't see that that's a game for them, but it is also an opportunity for them to find in the industry that really, really needs their perspective so that we can tell authentic stories. So I totally agree. The earlier that we can see this as an opportunity, the more likely we can say, we can introduce Jam City and EA and Riot Games to say, this is an opportunity for you to come in and give your voice, because if we're going to continue to tell authentic stories, we need those perspectives.
Absolutely. So speaking of perspectives, and by the way, Sophia Aguirre in the chat, we see you. I hope everyone's seeing Sophia Aguirre. Sophia's trying to make her life happen today. Sophia, you need to add all these powerful women and me on your LinkedIn and then make it happen, Captain. That's just how there is to it. You made it this far. You just need to take that next step. But now we want to talk to Chelsea, because you're the boss. You're where the rubber meets the road. I don't care, Cosio, I don't even know anyone but you. I know you. So now, what is it for you now to provide access to the next generation of Chelsea?
Of me. I'm trying to make more me's. I'm hoping by people seeing me, that's one step to inspire people. They see that there's someone who looks like them. It makes it a little less scary. Like everyone's saying, I echo everything everyone has said here. And we do a lot of the same practices. We do have a kid who interned for us. We went down to some high schools on the south side of Chicago, actually, some years ago, worked with some students. We have one of those kids, came back every summer, worked for us through, he went to college, and now he's a full-time employee with us. So we do have one of those people. We're trying to do more of that, because I think we see that basically, we do have to start earlier. We have to start in schools. We have to start in college. We have to start in high school. When I was in high school, I had no idea what you could be. Everyone I knew worked in a factory or maybe was a professor. I knew I didn't want to work in a factory. Professor didn't seem attainable to me. I was somewhere between. I thought I'd work at McDonald's. I just thought I'll get a good job. I had no idea what that meant. So I just went towards education. But so now for me to give back and to talk to kids and help them understand that there are careers out there, I think is really important. And a lot of times when I talk to kids, they're afraid to put like McDonald's on a resume or something, some type of job like that. And I say, well, that showed you could show up, you had responsibilities, you got there on time, you learned a skill. Don't be afraid to put those things down on a resume. I think we at Iron Galaxy too, we've never cared what school or program you went to, right? Now we have a lot of great people who come out of UCF. We have a scholarship for underrepresented groups now that we sponsor at DePaul and UCF. our two biggest markets to tie in with the community. We're trying to do more internships, intentional internships with HBCUs and other underrepresented people that we may not have reached previously. We also have internal apprenticeship programs, I should say. So there can be more people like me, people who come up, start in QA or start as a production coordinator, and then find a role that works for them. And one of the things I think that is different at Iron Galaxy is there was no such thing as a CEO when I started. I had no idea that that was something. We didn't have a CEO. We had Dave Lang running around in tearaway pants, right? So I had no idea. So I always try to tell people that even if you don't see a role currently, it doesn't mean it can't exist.
Yeah.
So just keep showing your skill set, keep showing your collaboration and your teamwork, and that'll pay off, right? And we really try to tailor our career growth program to the individual. So we're not looking for people to just fit in a box that we write a job description and it's this box. We really look at the individual, what makes them happy. We don't look to pay managers more than great individual contributors, because we want people to choose the paths that make the right sense for them, right? And reward everyone for being on the team together.
That is fantastic. And you actually bring me right to my next point. And I'll do my brief GDP plug for a second, because what we're going to be doing is GDP Honors, which is going to be honoring the best in diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging this August, because we need to retain y'all. Y'all need fuel too and need to be sustained. And so I want to talk about that. And I want to stay with you, Chelsea, because you began to talk about it. There's a difference between getting into this craft and actually staying in it and growing. Like you immediately started talking about growth and retention. And I'll sort of bring it back around the circle in our last 15 minutes to talk about what sort of things are you doing once people do get in the door, right? Because you need, it's like a spaceship. You need that explosion off the launch pad, but it turns out you need fuel in space. You get out there and you need the fuel then. So maybe talk to people, give some visibility, and we'll start with Iron Galaxies. Take us a little into how you're keeping that student from South Side of Chicago.
Sure.
Now that they're there.
Even though we've hired 80 people in the last year, or slightly over 80, our retention is still almost 5 years, our average tenure of people who are with us, right? And so that means we're doing something right. And I think what we're doing right is listening to people. We both listen to our employees. We get surveys every week on how our employees are feeling, and we actually mine that. We talk to the managers. We also really preach a culture of respect. Because of this collaboration and this teamwork, you're going to have disagreements. Fun is so subjective. You're arguing subjective things, but it's productive arguing. It's constructive. We want it to be respectful. If we say we want diversity and we want people of all different backgrounds, and that's important to us, we can't lose sight of the inclusivity once they get there. We can't bring them in and then suddenly they're disrespected. No one listens to the ideas. We have to make sure that ideas are listened to from all groups, and that things. So we do have a DEI committee that we started. I foolishly thought that they could self-organize and they would elect a president and it would be miraculous, and that didn't happen. So we have actually a DEI program lead who's starting next week, who can be that liaison and accountability partner. And I also try to remind other people in leadership at Iron Galaxy that it's not just me. Of course, the executives, we need to walk the walk and talk the talk, but it's not just me. It's the responsibility of all of the management and every individual to create an inclusive culture at Iron Galaxy, and to help be a good teammate and notice when you can give someone an opportunity to grow. So it's really thinking about people as people, respecting both their individuality and their boundaries, frankly, understanding that they have a life, right? That this is not the be all and end all, that they have other responsibilities that we are respectful of. And so it's listening and respect. That's what I think keeps people with us.
That's fantastic. I want to bring back to you, Angela and Francisca, right? Because you've evolved diversity from a topic to a business goal, which are two different things, right? They say when it's in the business dashboard, that's a different dashboard than the affinity dashboard or even the employee retention dashboard. So maybe talk about, let's talk about that. Angela, I'll go back to you. Like about,
this job is hard. Let me just say this, like when you're leading, DE&I is not transactional, it's transformational. And so I would love to just here's the program and here's the thing. I mean, it is always constantly rejiggering, and I've been doing this for 20 years. And when I first started this role, I thought, okay, I'll do this role for like 5 years and everybody will kind of self-select and we'll figure this out. And it's 20 years later, and I believe it's becoming more complex. Like 15 years ago, we didn't talk about politics inside of work. Like there's so much complexities that you have to do. And so for us, I have a measurement and a goal around retention. That's part of the scorecard that I talked about. Because I think retention for us is like making sure that why people chose Riot is why they stay at Riot. And so I do think having that voice to understand why people are leaving. And so I take it personally when people leave. We also have long tenure, but I also recognize if you're a growing company that our tenures are going to change. And so I don't use that so much as a degree of success or failure. It is people's experiences. And so a couple of things that we've done, again, I talked about this listening. I recognize that how women at Riot were coming to the table was much different. And so I had to make the decision about how do we create a place for all where inclusion meant everybody. So we launched this Women at Riot program that was really kind of orchestrated by what we heard from not only our survey results, but by me listening and talking to folks. And so one was, how do I navigate career when, how do I understand what my career track is? How do I disagree? How do I amplify my voice in a way when it's only one of me in the room? And so creating strategies about how to navigate as we continue to kind of increase representation, as we continue to see the difference of, the diversity of our leadership team is making. And so retention is something that I look at every quarter with the chief people officer. And I look at who's leaving and who's staying. We even went to the place, and we're still kind of growing our people processes and saying, who do you want to keep? And let's make sure that we're creating plans for them so that they know that first of all, we want them to stay and that they have a career here. Fundamentally at Riot, people love our games. And I think that's the hope that I have, that people really know why they're there, and it's really to delight players. But I think it's also recognizing that, we have this mission of being the most game-focused gaming company in the world. And for us, from a D&I perspective, my job is to remove the stuff that gets in the way of people so that they can delight players. So if you come to Riot and you feel uncomfortable, awkward, like you don't belong, then you're not giving us your best work. And that's what we're trying to do. And so we, again, are asking folks, what does it look like, and creating plans around that. We have a good, we're growing and scaling as well. Our attrition is not, high. I like it to be a little higher because I think that creates opportunities for others as well. So it's kind of how you measure that. Not that I want anyone to leave, but it's like how you think about how we, how do you grow and scale a company, and how do you start to develop people? So I think the other component for us is, how are we developing people for the next role? When you're a smaller company and we're about 2,500, everyone organically can I can say, yeah, I want to do that job. And you probably can get to do that job, which is the beauty of that. But how do I develop you for what skills we're going to need in the future? And so now what the people team is really focused on is development opportunities. How do we get people to develop in a way that they can meet the goals for our next Camp 2 is what we call it, our next level of goals. So development, I think, is key. Really keeping your pulse on, do people feel proud to work there? Would they refer a friend? Those are the two mainstays that I look at. But I think what I'm most proud of what we're going through, again, we have a lot of work to do, is that the diversity and inclusion conversation happens when I'm not in the room. So sometimes it has to be when the head of diversity is there. It happens when I'm not there. I feel we're being pulled in to say, Angela, what are we doing around recruiting? Which is a great place for us to be. How are we retaining our talent? This person might be leaving. What should we be doing? And so those are kind of a lot of the conversations that I'm having at Riot today. How do I measure that and monitor and make sure that is a great opportunity to bring in more talent? That's kind of where I think the direction that we're going. But I think retention is super important. Our goal is that you want people to have a great experience, whether if they decide to leave for another opportunity. I want everyone to walk away saying I had a great experience at Riot.
Awesome. Francisca, same question.
So I think fairly quickly, so that way I give the opportunity to Nika and Susanna, but for inclusion, I think it's our opportunity to practice the platinum rule, which is treat others the way that they want to be treated, not the way that we want to be treated.
Ooh.
That for me is extremely.
Wait, say it one more time for those in the back.
So,
that's something new we need to take with us.
Treat others the way they want to be treated, not the way I want to be treated. So I think that that's key, and that only is going to come by connecting with each other, the leadership, the peers, and everyone taking on an active role. I have to agree with Angela and Chelsea. It does not only fall on the leadership team or the diversity person. It's everybody has to take accountability and drive and be the champion for DEIB.
Yes, this is and you're right. I want to, Susanna, I mean, because you've been working on change, period.
Yeah.
Since before it was cute, before it was a thing, you were in Games for Change. This is how it's going to be. And so you've had a chance to live, navigate, shape, experience some of that change to where we are today and to where we need to head. How are you retaining and growing, and how are you cultivating the ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, Nika alluded this to earlier, you know, like this whole series, the whole experience of the pandemic has been crazy, right? For the games industry overall, right? It's crazy for everybody, but like the games industry just obviously is having this moment, right? Where you've got an entire culture of people locked down and playing video games, right? And that's been great from an economic standpoint, but from a cultural understanding point, what I've seen is that there's a better appreciation for video games from parents, from educators, because like, okay, like I may be sick of my son or daughter playing for 3 hours every day, playing League of Legends or Minecraft, but at least they're hanging out with their friends. Like, you know, this has become a social platform, right? And we've seen educators, same thing, like they are just struggling to keep their kids engaged and their students engaged. Why not do it through gaming, right? Through a video game, because they're meeting where the kids are. So actually what I've seen is an acceleration of appreciation and understanding about how games can be drivers of social impact. And that's affecting, I think, our ability to do the work that in this space, which is how do we encourage the next generation and their supports, right? Because it's not just their kids. It's Nika's parents, right? It's Francisca's parents. It's like, yes, actually, this could be a career path. I'm going to support you in this. And the educators, and there's high schools and middle schools. Yes, start a gaming club. Allow the computer science teacher to create an AP course on game design. Like, get that buy-in from those supports, and I think we are in a better position now than we've ever been.
That's awesome. And Nika, you're close last word, but I want everyone, because I'm all about that call to action vibe, because the people who made to this room to listen, I see the 76 participants, they want to do something. Okay, they made it this week. They spent time. They could go have some lunch right now if they want to. So
I'll do a really quick one there. Really quick.
Please.
If you're interested, if anyone's interested in mentoring or participating in the middle or high school program, we have a forum on our website. Literally, it's like an hour of your day to judge games for a student competition.
What is the URL, Susanna? What is the URL?
I don't know. Go to gamesforchange.org.
There we go. Put that
in there somewhere, like community page.
Perfect. So Nika, same thing. I know we're wrapping up, and Ned, we're going to keep the trains running on time, but people need something to do. What can they do, Nika?
All right. If you need something to do, I got two things for two different audiences. One, if you are a company, small studio, big company, whatever, and you want to make a difference, call me, partner with me. I've got some new grantees. My goal is to accept 75 people this summer that are looking for a shot and need a job. So that's step one. And you can email me. I'll toss it in there. It's fine. The real heroes are actually my team members, Sarah Spears and Bree Wendt. I'm just a great pontificator, but the real heroes on my team are Sarah and Bree. Two, if you are on this call and you're looking for a way into the industry as a young professional, 18 plus, so you're either in college or graduating or grad school, whatever, and you want a job in games from an underserved community. If you are like, damn, I've been doing IT at this weird insurance company and I've always wanted to work in games, but I have 3 kids and there's no effing way I'm going back to school and racking up debt for a game development job, that there's a program for you. It's called Velocity. And if you have been in the games industry for 5 to 7 years and you're like, kind of know. My boss kind of sucks. I'm sick of games. My studio's being shitty. I might quit forever. I'm so upset. My pandemic demons have taken over. Before you're thinking about quitting, apply to our Next Gen Leaders program, and let's reason through it before you just cut the cord completely from games and get stolen up by one of these big internet companies. Like, you're precious. Like, you're precious.
It almost happened to me, but I'm still here.
Wait, still, Chelsea, you play low key. You co-CEO before we diminish anything about you ever again. You're still running things. Angela, Francisca, final words.
I think for me, be the change you want to see in the world. And I think even if you're in gaming or not gaming, the way just be kind. I mean, I think that's the thing that I would leave people with. And then I would say, we're a gaming company, but we have a lots other kinds of openings. So we have marketing and comms and human resources. So if you want to get in gaming, you don't have to just be a game designer. You actually can apply. So I would say apply because, it is, and I've seen people who come from communications become game designers. It's a way for them to start their careers. And especially in these gaming companies who are still relatively like between 3,000 people, there's still so much opportunity to move organically. So I would say first step is to apply. The second step is I agree with, Francesca, use the platinum rule every day that you have the opportunity to do so.
My one word, join us. Well, that's 2 words. Come join us.
Yeah.
Internships or full careers.
All right. Yeah. I want to thank everyone and give everyone a healthy break because self-care, everyone's doing their best out here. So I want to give everyone their 14 minutes of time. Thank you, Ned, for having us and keeping the discussion going. I'm going to thank you in advance for our next panel. So I know you're going to keep this going in your future events. So thank you very much.
Gordon, really appreciate it. Chelsea, Nika, Francisca, Susanna, Angela, great panel. We really, really enjoyed it. And have a wonderful day, everybody, and have some kindness, as Angela said. I like that takeaway. Our next session is our final session of the day, and we have a fireside chat with Electronic Arts Samantha Ryan. So please join us in 13 minutes, and we will kick that off. Have a great day, everybody.
Ciao.
Bye.